Here's another episode of what it's like to go to war. And in this episode, I want to talk about war movies. Now, I'm a guy who absolutely has this love-hate relationship with war movies. I love the fact that these acts of valor are being portrayed on the screens for everybody in the world to see. I believe that most of what happens on the battlefield, the world needs to know, but I don't believe it needs to be glorified. That's the love part of my relationship with war movies. I also have a hate of almost every war movie that I've ever seen, to include the war movie that I was part of, Black Hawk Down. I have this hatred of war movies because it's almost impossible for a director, a producer, for actors who's never been to combat before to portray accurately what a fight is really like for the audience. I found that the people that are closest to the fight have the most trouble explaining the fight to people that are farthest away from the fight. Let me explain what I mean by that. When a military force goes off to combat, you have a lot of people that are in the support role at various points along the battlefield. Some of them are supporting from way back in the distance. Some of them are supporting from around the U.S. forces. Others of them are supporting right up into the edge of the fight. But you have a very small portion in any military operation of the actual fighters in the war, in that combat operation. The majority, the overwhelming majority, are supporters, and supporters that are taking part in the battle from a distance. Those fighters that are right up at the front, the ones that are directly engaging the enemy, the ones that have the most intense roles on the battlefield, those are the people that we make movies about. But here's the problem. They often struggle to explain what it was like to be close to the fight to everybody, even people in the military that were in the same war, but just nowhere close to the battle. They struggle to explain it to people that are far away from the fight. And I'm one of those guys. In fact, my first 3 different war, the invasion of Panama in '89, Desert Storm in '91, and Somalia in '93, I never talked to the media. I didn't talk to my family. I didn't talk to other people in the military about what happened during those fights. In fact, the only people that I really felt comfortable talking to are the guys that were right there with me in the fight, or other guys and gals that have been at that point in a battle sometime in history. World War II, Korea, Vietnam veterans. I just found it difficult to explain this part of the fight. People that have only seen the fight from this part or have no experience whatsoever with the fight. And honestly, the challenge is with my own language. I just thought I don't have the right words to describe what this was like to somebody who's never been there before. So I started doing these video series for warriors who have never been to combat before, trying to give them an idea of what they might expect when they get to combat from a guy who's been to combat. And even in these videos, I still struggle with it. I found that the guys and gals closest to the fight struggle to explain the fight to people that are farthest away from the fight. And this is my issue with war movies. People that describe the battle most often are the ones that are farthest away from it, like historians, like reporters, like people that are watching it from a distance. The people that are closest to the battle are almost always the ones that struggle with the words to put into voice what they've experienced. And I've been around some of the most intelligent, some of the most articulate men and women on the planet who have been in the military, who have been in intense combat, and even they struggle with it because they're trying to explain something life-changing to a person that has no reference point, no explanation of what it's like. So for many years, my wife used to roll her eyes when me and my buddies were watching war movies, because in the first 30 seconds, we started picking these war movies apart and started dissecting and explaining all the things that they're getting wrong. Even after the movie Black Hawk Down came out and the actor who played me in the movie, I had to deliberately, intentionally force myself to remember a movie is not the historical record of what happened on the battlefield. My relationship with war movies changed after Black Hawk Down, but even I struggle explaining what the close fight was like to people that have never been there. So if you have a family member, you have a friend who's been in battle and you've been prompting them to tell you what it's like and they've been holding back on you, it may not be that they're ashamed. It may not be that they're keeping a secret from you. It may be that they just don't have the words to describe what this is like. Don't get me wrong. I still think we need war movies. I am absolutely convinced that some of the greatest acts of valor in human history have happened on battlefields, and those acts need to be portrayed for the world to see. What I'm trying to say in this video is it's extremely difficult to be the person close to the fight and explain the fight to people that are really far away from it. So now I have to remind myself to be gracious and to give a little bit of leeway to war movies, because it's people that have never been there trying to describe what it's like to audiences that have never been there by people who have been there but are struggling with the words to explain it. This is my take on war movies, and I'm not telling you don't go watch them. In fact, I do believe there are many really, really good war movies. Just keep in mind the people closest to the fight often have the greatest difficulty explaining the fight to people that are far away from it. Because even if they could find the words, those words wouldn't ring true for somebody who's never been through those experiences. Just a couple of thoughts for you on what it's like to go to war, talking about war movies today. See you next time.